right, the next one is the median. The median of a set of scores is the middle value when the scores are arranged in order of increasing magnitude. So, if I brought in Fisher's football team, and I had them all line up in the front of the classroom, from tallest to shortest. And then I had the tallest person and the shortest person sit down. Then I had the next tallest and the next shortest person sit down. And I kept doing that until one person was left. The height of that person is the median height. The problem is if there's an even number of people, I'm going to end up with 2 people left. And if I have them both sit down, there's not going to be anyone left. So there are 2 cases. We can have an odd number of scores, and if it is an odd number, the median is the number that's the value that's exactly in the middle. If there's an even number of scores, or in this case football players, then there's going to be 2 people left. And to find the median then, what we do is we eliminate down to 2 people. We take both heights of both people, we add them up and divide by 2. So we're actually finding the mean of the remaining 2 people. And that is the median. So if there's an even number of scores, the median is found by calculating the mean of the 2 middle numbers. Now, symbols. I have never, ever seen this out in the real world. I've seen it in college, graduate school, all that stuff, that the population median is mu sub 1/2. I've never seen it out in anything other than an educational institution. So, you will never see this from me. This, I have seen somewhat. X with a little squiggle above the top for the sample median. So, if you see this from me, it will be like this anyway. Alright, so procedure. We are going to, step 1, arrange all the scores from the smallest to the largest. So if you're given a chunk of data, put it from smallest to largest. Step 2, eliminate the smallest and largest score. So just draw a line, or take your fingers and just cover them up or something. Step 3, continue eliminating groups of smallest and largest scores until only 1 or 2 numbers are remaining. If 2 scores are remaining, add them together and divide by 2. The result's the median. If there's only 1 score, then that number is the median. All right, so here, let's do our example. All right, so here are my front foot lengths and my rear foot length. So I have 10 front foot lengths. I only have 9 rear foot lengths. I couldn't find a 10th one. Or it was too badly damaged or something, I couldn't measure it. So, find the median length for both front and rear foot. So here's my data from the front. And I actually color-coded them so you can see them being eliminated. But this is how you do it. Unless you're using a computer like Minitab that will do it for you. If you're doing this by hand, this is what you're going to do. Put a finger here, put a finger here, move in 1, move in 1, move in 1, move in 1. I have 2 numbers left. So I'm going to add these 2 together and divide by 2. So 2.3 plus 2.35 divided by 2 is 2.325. That's the median. All right, for the next set, I have an odd number. So I'm going to do the same thing. And I have 1 number left when I get to the center. That is my median, which is 1.12 inches. All right, so let's think about it. My first statistics professor I ever had here at Fisher just recently retired, Dr. Mellon. So let's say she still taught, and she and I are like competing to see whose class is going to do better. And we give the same exact exams. So you guys take exam 1, her class takes exam 1. She calls me up. She's like, Sean, Gene Mellon. I'm like, hey, Dr. Mellon, how are you? my students are doing really well this semester. They had an average on their first exam of a 79. So then, maybe my mean is a 76, but my median is an 82. Really? My average was an 82. I didn't tell her that it was the mean. I didn't tell her it was the median. I said average. We're going to talk throughout the semester. I've run into quite a few times that the newspaper has substantially, in essence, they've lied. Because the way the general population would read the article is not what they're really presenting. So back to that story. The average price of a house in Pittsford is $220,000. You cannot assume that when they say average, they mean the mean. It could be any average. Now, normally, giving the newspaper credit, normally nowadays they say the mean or the median or something like that. But if they don't, you can't just assume that that's the case. Later in the semester, when we start talking about the neurolinguistic psychology that I teach, one of the ways you can covertly influence people is to force them to assume something that isn't necessarily true. For example, if I said this, I couldn't come to class the other day, I'm sorry, because my father just died. Now, if you doubted something, what would it be that you doubted? You might doubt the fact that my father died. However, by saying that, I am putting into your mind that I have a father. You don't doubt the fact that I have a father. You might doubt the fact that he died, but you definitely don't doubt the fact that I have a father. So by putting it in the sentence the way I do, I can force you to think that I have a father, or at least I had a father. So it's very simple to do this, and we're going to talk more about it, but it's an average. This happens to be the median. All right, next, the mode. The mode, I have a love-hate relationship with the mode. I really like the mode, but unfortunately it's not very useful most of the time. The mode is the score that occurs the most. So, on an exam, let's say all of you get different grades, but 4 people get 90s. Then the mode is a 90. That's the average if you're using the mode. Okay, one thing this is why I love the mode though. You don't have to have numbers to figure out the mode. What if I said, what is the average shirt color in this room? How the heck are you going to figure that out with numbers? There's always some science student here who's like, oh, well, you could shoot it with a light source and then we could have a light meter that tells the wavelength of the reflected light off of it. We could add that together. Seriously, no. Instead, all we got to do is look at what shirt color occurs the most. And it's like this dark bluish color. There's a lot of those. That's the average shirt color. Right? All right, so back when I first started teaching, some of you might not even, this should go in like a museum. This is called an overhead projector. And I used to use one of these a long time ago. And so I had all my notes on overheads. And what I would do is I'd sit right next to the overhead projector, and I'd have my notes over here. I'd pull an overhead off, slap it down, and it would project. So I wanted to be creative. This is what I wanted to do. When I first started teaching, I thought, I want to find some language that has numbers that don't look like our numbers. Or at least they have a way of writing it. So then what I could do, this is my theory, that I could put the goofy looking numbers, not that they're goofy, but different looking numbers up on the screen, and I could say, okay, who can tell me what the average, whatever type of number it was, number on the screen? That was my idea, and then people would have to realize they had to do the mode because they couldn't read it, right? So I looked, and then I'm like, oh, I could just use Chinese characters, right? Because they're different, and the Chinese character for 1 is a straight line. Chinese character for 2 is 2 straight lines. Chinese character for 3 is 3 straight lines. I'm like, yeah, that's not really going to work. Now, granted, 4 and up are different, but all you got to do is count the brush strokes, and you still get the same answer, so it didn't work. So I looked, and finally I found a language that is taught at quite a few universities, but isn't spoken anywhere. I mean, in any countries. Ready for this? Klingon. from Star Trek. So, no, I'm not a huge Trekkie or whatever they are. But I found it, I thought, hey, this is creative. And it looked really cool. There were these bizarre symbols. So, I took an overhead, put a whole bunch of Klingon numbers on it, and this is what I do. I flop it down, be like, who can tell me what the average of the Klingon numbers up on that screen is? And then everyone would look at me like, oh God, you know, they had no clue. And then all of a sudden, all these little light bulbs would go on. Ding, 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 ding. And then they'd sit there, you'd see them counting with their fingers like this, because they would be counting all the characters. Now, what I did is in the bottom left of the screen, I put the character that was the mode. So then they could say, oh, it's the one that's down in the bottom left.